Have you ever been in a meeting and felt completely overwhelmed with all the topics being thrown around and not able to distill them down to concrete action items? Meetings can be chaotic, fluid, and non-linear. It's no wonder that bullet points sometimes just can't keep up. Hi, I'm Sheng, and on this channel, I share tips, strategies, and lessons that help bring us closer to the best versions of ourselves. Mind mapping on the app Notability is my go-to method to dynamically capture all the main points of a meeting, as well as make new connections and insights between all the topics being covered. Combined with audio recording and playback, this is the ultimate tool to make sure that we don't miss another detail ever again. And if you don't have an iPad, don't worry, because all of the techniques that we're gonna cover today is also applicable to good old Moleskine notebooks, any notebook, and erasable pens. All right, guys, let's dive in. What do you need to get started? Obviously, the best combo is going to be the iPad with Notability. Currently, I have the second generation iPad Pro with 11-inch with the second generation Apple Pencil running Notability. This allows me to resize any of my mind maps, as well as switch between different colored inks, which is super helpful, as well as double tap to erase, which makes this a much more natural mind mapping experience. Combined with the audio recording and playback that we're gonna cover in a bit, this is basically a one-stop shop for everything that you need for mind mapping using the hand-drawn method. But for the longest time, literally for years, I've mind mapped just as effectively using a Moleskine notebook. So you can definitely get away with that. If you are gonna go with the notebook method, I do recommend having two pens. The first one is going to be your fine point, which is 0.7 millimeters. And typically I have that in blue just because of how bold it is. And then for annotations, I use a 0.5 millimeter extra fine red ink, right? So whatever color combination that you go with, just make sure that they're high contrast so that you're able to tell between the main mind map that you're drawing as well as annotations that you're going to be making, which makes deciphering your mind map way easier. All right, guys, let's jump into the 5 steps to make a perfect meeting mind map. All right, let's go through the 5 steps. Well, actually, before I even start, I want to hit record and you'll see why this is important and such a killer app within Notability. The first step is to start with the central topic, and this could be the meeting name, for example, along with the date. So that's going to be your central node. And then what I like to do is expand out the main nodes to incorporate essentially like the agenda items, the people. This is what I like to call kind of like basically building the structure of the mind map around the important points that you already know that you should be covering. So for example, there is the people who are going to be involved in the meeting. There is the agenda items, right? Then there could be the prep work that I need to be aware of. And then finally, any additional information that comes out of the meeting. And I like to circle it just so that it's very clear. Agenda items, then the next step or sub-step of expanding all the details is to expand out, let's say, the agenda items under agenda. So topic 1, topic 2, and topic 3. Under people, if I know them beforehand, I can list out the name. The name's 1, or like Bill or Bob or something like that. If I know they come from a particular company or multiple companies are on the meeting, maybe I'll go company 1, company 2, name 1, name 2, etc., etc. So this is just really just taking inventory of everybody who is going to be involved in the meeting. Third step here, we've got, let's see, prep step 1. This could be, for example, I don't know, like creating a presentation, PowerPoint presentation or something. Step 2, review that PowerPoint presentation with my boss before going into the meeting. Maybe step 3, is to, check out all the bios, right? So this could be the deck, this could be the review deck, and then finally step 3 could be read bios. Cool. And this is just a mental note for me to go through all these steps. I'm ready. Additional, this is just a kind of catch-all for whatever comes out of the meeting. Now that we have this structure going on, this is everything that I need to do essentially before the meeting starts. But now that when the meeting actually does start, I'm actually going to switch over to a new color, as you saw. I'm going to go for, let's say, green or whatever color you want. And then I'm going to just start saying, hey, topic 1, maybe they're like, note 1, note 2. Again, if the meeting jumps around a lot, for example, if there is some detail that doesn't really belong to any of the agenda items or topics, then that means I can just put it here, right? So it's like detail 1, for example. At the end of this whole meeting, you're gonna have like, green plus blue ink all across. And then the final one, and I sometimes do this while I am making the note in real time or afterwards to summarize everything, is to use the red color or whatever color you choose, to annotate the mind map so that it's very easy to go back to and read, right? So some of my most common annotations are, for example, an arrow. So let's say a person from company 1 or something like that. Let's say Bob from, I don't know, Facebook or Niantic Labs or what have you, is related to this particular task, then I'll draw an arrow there, right? So that's a connection. This is a connection, right? Or action, perhaps, that they are responsible for that. And then another one that I like doing is if there are action items involved. Let's say you have to summarize this in minutes, mini minutes or something like that with action items. I like circling them, right? So those are action items. Maybe there are some important highlights that you have to know, right? Let's say the important detail here, maybe it's project specifics or something like that. I'll put it here, or there's another note. So there's like an important note. And then finally, if there is a sequence of things, let's say there's a priority of action items to be had, I will put 1 and 2, which basically turns this into almost like a checklist or to-do list of sorts, right? So already you can see a lot of the structure that's forming. So basically the last and 5th step is taking all of this mind map and then distilling it down to summary action items and important details that you can share with your team or just review for yourself. And already from here, I know that these are action items, right? And these are important notes, as well as any details that I need to add. That means I can go through and create like a document or email that summarizes everything. And this way, no detail essentially is lost, right? You'll be able to see all the connections as well as who is doing what at the end of this meeting. One thing to note is, remember how we press record in the beginning of the way we draw this, right? So this is basically the conclusion of that particular mind map. I'm going to stop. And this is assuming that, let's say you're on Zoom call or something like that, or in an in-person meeting, you just recorded the entire audio transcript for that meeting. Not only that, but check this out, right? Remember how we pressed that in the beginning? Well, I'm gonna do a quick audio scrub and you can literally see that this is now being repopulated, drawn in real time and backwards and forwards. This means that if there is a particular detail that I'm missing, I can literally rewind time and then press play. And that means I can just put it here, right? So it's like, wow, detail. Isn't that pretty awesome? So this means that I can actually rewind time and go back and never miss a detail. You now have 3 very, very powerful mechanisms. You have basically the structure of the meeting. You have the notes that you have taken on this mind map, and as well as all of the audio details, right, that's associated with each of the notes. This means that you will never miss another detail if you want to go back in time. All right, let's go through a few examples, actually. Now that we've covered the 5 steps and given you kind of like a framework to work through, I'll go through actually some real meeting notes that I've taken over the course of the last couple of years, right? So here is a customer meeting. Here's a core. What I mean by core is that this is what I had prepped beforehand, right? So for example, I've got customer meeting. These are the agenda items. Again, this is a recurring meeting with one of our customers, which means that I already know the people, which means that I don't need to always list the people in a separate node. These then become the agenda items. So for example, I know we're gonna talk about survey, the web app, AR glasses, the dev portal. What actually came up a little bit later and as a surprise kind of topics for this particular meeting were coverage and special projects, right? So what I did was that I actually left room in the mind map so that I can account for any topics that wasn't in the original agenda, right? So always leave some additional room if possible. I then changed up my my color of the pen to take real-time notes. So all the green essentially is from the meeting contents itself rather than the prep. And then finally, I used the red ink in order to put the action items down, right? And I remember, doing a ton of these different meetings and mind mapping them out and then sending out the follow-up email with all the action items. All the action items are based on these circles. Very, very easy to tell. So the next one we've got is a supplier meeting. So we had a data supplier that we were interviewing. So all of the blue then were my prep. So between people, agenda, and any of the prep work that I needed to do, right? And then we had the terms of the agreement that we were negotiating with them on, right? So, and then the meeting notes itself then was in green. And again, I used red for the actual action items or questions that we want to do. And I had a few arrows here to say, hey, I need to send them a few sample areas for them to provide us data for, again. The final example we're gonna go through is a customer negotiation. This was when I was negotiating in real time with one of our customers on an agreement. So here you'll see that all the blue stuff is the major points that we want to negotiate, which is acceptance, the risk allocation, as well as data. Some of the minor things that we didn't care as much about was like timelines, as well as the invoicing, payment terms, etc. Right? So this was an easy way for me to, during our discussion with them, to really pinpoint what mattered to us, what didn't matter so much, as well as use the green ink to really note what came out of the meeting. So for example, a major point for them under risk allocation was data protection. Being that they were a large company and stuff with user data, they needed to know that their confidential user data as well as personal data was protected. So that was something that was additional that came out of the meeting, which was highlighted in green. And then finally, a lot of the action items came out, or just like special notes that I used in red ink, right? So from this, I can then craft up a follow-up email for all the parties involved, all the individuals involved, so that we're on the same page moving forward. All right, guys. I know that was pretty quick. We covered a lot of ground, but hopefully that was helpful to walk through both the 5 steps for that meeting mind map, as well as giving you guys a few examples of how I do it in real life. All right, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time very soon. All right, take care now.